What's up, hobby hooligans? Welcome to another episode of Ashtabula Hobby Talk. I'm Rakus, and I'm here with.
I'm Nemo with Amigos Radio Club. Ashtabula is on the back here, and amateur radio enthusiast. And welcome, hobby hooligans, to Hobby Talk. And tonight we've got a special guest, an old friend of mine and sort of a mentor in some ways. Is his name is Jack. He runs a YouTube channel called Jawin with Jack. So let's bring him in. Jack, thanks for being here with us tonight, man. And how you been?
Man, I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. I'm on riding high, and thank you for having me on here, man. I feel it's a pleasure to be here and happy to talk about what's been happening.
Excellent, excellent. Well, so everybody understands. Me and Jack used to role play together back in the day, and he's pretty knowledgeable when it comes to the role playing games. And he. I watch his show. I only catch about every other one, but I get. He has lots of great guests, game developers and just gaming enthusiasts on his channel in general. So Jack, tell us a little bit about your channel, how you got started. Give us an origin story, man.
All right. Well, actually, I've been kind of social media averse most of my life, right? And it was a few years ago, back around 2016, 2017, where I actually managed to produce and publish a novel independently. It was actually with in conjunction, a co-authoring thing with a high school friend of mine that I used to play D&D with back in the day. And and we released it, and it was an utter flop because I wasn't doing social media. I had no presence on there, and so me trying to promote a book, it just didn't take at all. So in the years since, I kind of came to the realization that if I'm going to do anything, I kind of need to learn how social media works. And so I started dipping my toes in here and there. I've watched YouTube for many years. And technically had a channel, like I used to did a couple karaoke streams a long time ago, stuff like that. But then I fell in with a role playing crowd through finding YouTube videos of certain channels, and then that led me over to the role playing community on X, and it's just a little tight knit group of people who are, most of them are indie TTRPG creators, but it's a nice little community over there. It's very friendly. And I started interacting over there, and it was based upon that I said, well, I've been wanting to do something like a YouTube channel. I wasn't sure what it was for a long time, and in watching D&D channels on YouTube, the ones I've always liked the most are one-on-one interviews, like just conversations. I always found those the most interesting because if I'm watching the show, it's probably because I like the guest or the host and they're having interesting things to say. I find that like when it comes to D&D content, I don't really care for most DM advice videos. I don't really care for actual plays very much, except for solo playthroughs. For some reason, I really like those. But that's another aspect of the hobby we can get to. But all that led me to thinking, well, that's what I'll do for a channel is I just want to talk to gamers, and I started reaching out to people, set up a few shows. I actually intended to start it with the new year, but things were really hectic and busy at work, and I kept saying, "All right, when things calm down at work, I'll take the time and set it up and get started and take the plunge." But then it just kept going and going and going. It was finally around June that I finally said, "Oh heck, I got it's half the year's gone. I just got to do it and pull the trigger." So I scheduled my first guest and just hopped up live. It's been all learn as you go, and each guest has been somebody that I interact with somewhere on social media and have conversations with, and so I know something about what they do, what they're like, and can and think that sounds like somebody who's going to have interesting things to say. I want to have a conversation with that.
Yeah, your last show, it was very punny. I was appreciative of it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the Pun King. And the funny thing, he's one of the early guys I fell in with. He happens to game as well, so it made a great guest. But oh man, whew, every day is a thing. Every day is a thing with him.
So, you used to run 13 Past Midnight, which was the role playing game that I was introduced to you with, and I was telling Rikus about that game and how it evolved, sort of, and that's where we met. And I think when I got to that game, it was probably about 30 people strong, right around that range, but it grew quite a bit.
That's one that had about 80 people in it, right?
Yeah, yeah. By
Wow.
the time it was done, after Jack handed it off to its predecessors, it had grown to 80 people. But I think while he was still hosting it and out of his house, which was at one point just a one floor half house apartment, there was probably at least 45 to 50 people there that were showing up every week.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, the story I can go back to and talk to about that is I got into vampire LARPing in the late '90s. My first LARP, I think, was like '96, give or take, something like that. And I didn't get to do a lot, but my first LARP was like a once a month affair, and they actually rented a nightclub that we went and played in for a whole afternoon. And when you're used to like a weekly D&D fix, and then you get into LARPing and to wait a whole month for another fix of the game that you're really into, it's torture, right? And I think Nemo can attest to it. You've seen it and probably experienced it yourself. There's something almost addicting about the live action experience. It sounds silly that we use rock, paper, scissors for the task resolution and, resolving conflict and stuff like that. But it works so well, and you can get so immersed in your character and even suspend your disbelief. I mean, when I remember you ran your own LARP, Legends of Darkness, back in the day, and it was the Dark Ages LARP, and it was still, even though it was just a neighborhood in Cleveland we're playing in, we were able to suspend our disbelief with the appropriate costuming and effort into it. It still really worked. So, but when I moved to Cleveland in '98, I left the first LARP I played in Philadelphia, and I just didn't know anybody here when I first moved here. I found out about a goth club that I started going to called the Chamber, which is still open to this day. And from what I hear, largely the same people still go to it that went to it back in the day when I first started going, back in the late '90s.
So what are they all in walkers now?
Yeah, seriously, seriously. Yeah, the Dancing with Canes. That's it, like that now. Uh, and so it was actually literally just one night. I started going to the goth club, and one night at the goth club, I saw somebody holding the rule book, and I went, "Oh!" And I went over and talked to him, and it turned out that ended up leading me to meeting the storyteller at the time, who was a guy named Ori Dean, and he was running a little LARP called 13 Past Midnight. I was, oh, that's awesome. And it was very unusual for a LARP because they played on a weeknight, like Thursday nights, once a week for like 3 or 4 hours. So you would go out there and the game went from like 9 to midnight maybe. So it was real short, 8 to midnight, something like that. It was a real short night, but you did it once a week, and that was a really neat pacing. However, eventually, Ori made an offer for anybody to step up if they wanted and temporarily be an ST. So I did that. Around the time I joined the game, it was under 10 players, or maybe around 10 on a big night. So it easily fit in an apartment. No issues, in a 2-bedroom apartment in Cleveland. But then I started being a guest ST for a few months, and it went over so well with the players, and we grew a little bit to a solid, like we were getting like 15 people, and it was starting to feel really exciting. Like, oh wow, there's a lot of energy when you have this many people in the space. And it was around that point that Ori said, "You know what? I think I've done everything I want to do as an ST anyway. I want to go ahead and hand it off to you, Jack. And you're hosting it now anyway." My wife and I, Velma, started hosting the game anyway, and that was around the time you joined. And you were part of an influx that was the night you came, I even remember it. It was the night we went from 15 to 30 players. It was like I was shitting myself, actually, to be perfectly honest. I was like, what am I going to do with 30 people? I have not prepared for this. But we just took a swing at it and kept it going. And I ran the game after that for several years. We hosted it for the entire time that I was DST. And I think by 2005 we had stepped away. I think it was around 2004, but we had a solid 5 or 6 years of hosting and running a LARP. And like you said, the highest number I remember hitting is 70. So, but I thought it possible that it hit 80 at some point after they moved out of my house and I turned the reins over to Pete.
Yeah, when he got it set up over by Vega, it had actually grown to probably 80 people, and
Okay.
it was great. It was good fun, and yeah, I actually kind of miss it. It's been a while.
Too, and the thing is, so the harsh truth is that vampire LARPing sometimes brings out the worst in people, and I love the hobby itself, right? But I've tried to go back, but there's this sort of cliquishness amongst the players. So like getting re-involved in the LARPing community locally is I kind of know all those people already, and don't want to do that again. It's sad to say, but that's the harsh truth.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm on out here. There's not the same kind of community out here as there was back in the Cleveland area. That's for sure. I have not. I know Rikus is he's part of a weekly D&D game, Tabletop. But
Nice.
in
Yeah.
his history, I'll let him say, but I don't think he's even seen a live action game like that at all.
I have a hard time doing personalities and things like that. My D&D games is I just talk matter of fact and pretend that it's in an accent in the D&D world, I don't
Mhm.
I can't get into character as much as LARPers do. I want to.
Well,
I mean, I just don't have that acting skill. My
I'll
personality is just kind of monotone.
I'll counter that with you don't have to actually be able to do that to participate in a LARP. You just do what you do, and still, just like a regular role playing game, as long as you're trying to think like that character, don't worry about doing a funny voice. Like, all you got to do is dress like your character. Go to a second-hand shop and pick up some old clothes that you think your character would wear, and then don't worry about faking a voice or doing anything like that. The costume does all the heavy lifting for you. That's all you need.
Yeah,
I'd be the dark shadowy
Like,
character with a
actually,
trench coat in the back of the bar.
I was about to comment, what you're wearing right now would actually be a perfect costume for a LARP for a vampire character. Because
I have like a trench coat collection.
What's that?
I have a trench coat collection. I have like maybe 10 trench coats.
See, there you go.
You're
You
in
were
there.
born. You were born. How can you own that many trench coats and not have gone to a LARP by now?
I don't know.
I would have thought the trench coats would have wrapped themselves around you while you were sleeping and marched you to the game while you were unconscious.
like Doctor Strange.
Okay,
Yeah.
but actually, in all seriousness, though, right? Because how did you get started in role playing games?
It had to been around 92. I was about 12 years old. Me and my friends picked up a D&D book. My friend had one, and it was second edition. I started in the second edition. I think 92 is right when second edition first came out. Somewhere around there. Maybe a little
Second
later.
edition.
Yeah. And
That's
we just played around with it, and I didn't know what I was doing. We didn't know what he was doing, but we just kind of figured it out.
right.
And
So you were guys who ended up very common in those days. You bought the books and figured it out on your own.
right.
Well, I was very young when I learned to play, but my dad just brought it home randomly one day and read it himself and taught us how to play. And that's kind of how I've done it over the years. That's how I got kick started all these years back. What was
And
it for you?
Well, for me, it was actually my friend Mike, who you know. Um, he
I remember.
oh, he used to have a couple cases of books, and we used to go party together on the weekends. And he lived not far from me. I think I was maybe 15 at the time. And one day he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to this D&D game. Do you want to go with me?" And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Good. Carry this milk crate of books." And so we kind of just broke everything out. And it was AD&D back then, and the modules were still there. Keep on the Borderlands. All them modules were all still around, and so we did a
More
lot of
like
stuff out of there. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Probably more like the earlier mid '80s when you started.
Yeah, yeah, probably like 83-ish, maybe I want to say, maybe 84, 85, right in that range. Because I definitely was high school age at that point, and he was just past high school age. He was just somebody I had known for a couple of years by then. Um,
Right.
and that's kind of where it started for me, just tabletop D&D. And then, I played a whole bunch of different game systems over the years, Rips and uh, the steampunk and all of them, a bunch of them. I couldn't further cult. I think I played TTMG, uh,
Hmm.
uh, revised recon, a bunch of them. Off the top of my head, those are just the ones I can think of. But Cyworld, I liked Cyworld, and the Marvel ship system. I
Yeah.
thought that was a good one too.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. I still play that actually.
It's quick, it's dirty, and you could be
Ye-
specific or you could be general. That's the kind of thing. That's one of the things I like about the game mechanics of that one, because you can say, "Oh, I wanna throw a fireball with my lasso," and that's what your power is. Or you could just be really quick with the lasso, and that's what your power is. And you know what I mean? Like it's very easy to just you know say, "This is what I want to do with it." Okay, that's what you want to do with it. Uh, that spend the points in it, and then you're wherever you're at. You're unearthly, or you're monstrous, or you know. So it's just I like it. It's a quick and dirty system.
Nice. Nice. Now, Rikus, you're still in a game. What are you playing? Is it fifth edition?
It's a homebrew fifth. It's a mixture of all the editions kind of together. The DM just kind of takes lore from all the editions and just kind of
Okay.
blurts
Yeah.
out
It's a
whatever.
it's a what do you call that? Melting pot of all the stuff he likes.
Right,
Which most of the time that's what I hear people are doing. One of the major things that is interesting about this hobby, like people who are, say, Monopoly enthusiasts, right? Every time they sit down to play Monopoly, it's a very static experience. It's yes, yes, I know it's always going to be different, but one game of Monopoly is much the same as another. Yet you go from one table to another in Monopoly, you know what to expect. But when you
right,
go from one table to another in D&D, all bets are off, right? They could be doing anything. There are even people that criticize that, like, no, there's a community. I actually tend to fall more in, like, whenever possible, I like to use rules as written. So if we're playing fifth edition, I'm using the fifth edition rules and only the fifth edition rules, because they'll be the most internally consistent. The more I try to kludge in stuff from other editions, the more likely I am to break it, you know, and that's
right,
the honest truth. Not everything is well balanced, but most people also don't honestly care that much about balance, and they want the fun of, I thought up this class, I want to write it up and use it. It'll be fun.
right. The game, the people I started out with when I was 12 years old, I'm still friends with them to this date, and we played for a good maybe solid 15 years straight, almost every weekend. And now that we're all adults now, we kind of split off, but we keep in touch, and we're trying to set up so we play a game every year at a campsite. But it hasn't gone so well so yet. But we're still planning it. Still kind of continuing the same game.
Right. So there's like continuity even in all the stories from then to now.
Right.
And that's great. Yeah, there's some people, and you hear stories of there's somebody out there who I can't remember what the current record is, but it's something like 44 years that somebody's been running the same campaign. I know another guy, he's a young guy too, but he's got a campaign that he's been running for 12 years continuously. And it's like a first edition AD&D campaign. It's amazing. There's so much variety in the hobby too, like unlike other venues, if you go to play basketball, or something like that, you use the most up to date rules. Whereas older editions of each of the games is still alive. There's still people doing that and playing that game. They're very small niches of the hobby,
Right.
but that's what most games are. Most of the other games, most of the shelf behind me are different role playing games, completely different systems, and they all have their different feel, and they all have their different like loyal communities. It
Right.
seems like the Pareto distribution kicks in, and 90% of what's going on out there is really D&D, mostly fifth edition. There doesn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm amongst my circles, or even from what I'm hearing from fifth edition people for the 2024 books, the sixth edition, whatever you want to
Right.
call it.
It took me a while
And
to warm up to 5th edition. I played 2nd edition and I played it my whole life, and it was more of the Wizards of the West Coast. They've done it for me because I was a big Spellfire fan. The Spellfire is a card game put out by TSR.
I still have a couple cards.
And me and my friends, we loved that game and we played it. And then when Wizards bought out TSR, they canceled Spellfire because it rivaled their Magic. And so
Yep.
since then, I held a grudge against Wizards, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with 3rd edition, 4th edition, anything Wizards put out. They tainted my TSR. So
Yeah.
Okay.
These companies that did.
Wow. Well, I can't fault you for your tastes.
but I buried the hatchet now. I'm good. I've played 5th edition. I've played Magic. It's been like
Have you
20
been
years.
Now wait
have
a
you
minute.
been keeping your ear to the ground on the hobby at all? Have you heard shenanigans over the last couple of years? Because Bloxy has made some huge missteps amongst the fan base.
Which one, Spellfire or Dungeons and Dragons?
D&D.
D&D.
Spellfire doesn't matter. I know you love it. It sucked. I'm sorry, it does. It's a terrible game, and the cards were poorly produced with recycled art from all the D&D projects.
I like the recycled art. It was kind of
I
refreshing.
know. That's why I still have my cards. There's a certain fondness and nostalgia I have for them and stuff like that. But let's face it,
But
Magic is in every superior game.
right.
It that's just
You
quantitative.
know, I think
You can do
I'm
the
drawing
math
the
and
line here. When
so
it comes.
pardon me. Enough about Spellfire. I don't mean to dog your Vegas, but
The new
um
iteration of D&D you're talking about, right?
yes, the newest iteration D&D, and in the Dungeons and Dragons community, WotC last year tried to roll out revisions to the
Right.
OGL that allow them to claim royalties from everybody who was publishing D20 products. It's much more complex
Didn't
and nuanced than that, but
didn't the
that's the
Mind's
long
Eye
story.
Theater guys try that too?
What's that?
Didn't the Mind's Eye Theater guys try that too with the vampire games?
Yes, they did. I never heard much about that after the fact. I did hear that it happened, but White Wolf were the originators of that, where they sued their own fan club for a cut of the dues from the games that were being run. So it's like, it's sometimes you guys just don't know when to stop yourselves. But truthfully, by the time that happened, I had already had it with White Wolf, and I was tired. All the third edition books had come out, and I was okay. I'm done with you guys. You're just reprinting the same things over and over again, and everyone's buying it
You
again.
know, I had that with D&D. By the time second edition came out, AD&D, then there was AD&D second edition, and then they started coming out with the .0 projects, is what I called them. And
Yeah.
they were just like releasing a whole new series every other year instead of, just give me more Monster Compendium stuff, give me more module stuff to base
Yeah,
the campaigns
modules.
on. That's what people need. They don't need like the reprint of the player's handbook every other year.
Right. I agree. Second edition had the most books and the most lore. Anytime you wanted something new, the second edition would put out another book for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, second edition, in my experience, in my opinion, is the one that is uh, the kind of the weakest if you take it by the core books alone, which is part of my philosophy. I'll talk about that shortly. But it's the best when you take in all the expansions. Every other edition, in particular, really ruins it with expansions. Even first edition, like Unearthed Arcana, in my opinion, breaks what is otherwise a pretty well balanced and internally consistent rule set. Unearthed Arcana had a whole bunch of overpowered stuff in it. But second
Yeah.
edition was much more modular. We didn't have anywhere near all the books. Honestly, who did? Who could keep up with what TSR was churning out?
I
The
got
thing that
everyone.
I didn't so much turn against the game as much as I turn against the quality of the product that they were churning out in the end. I felt like, you're not giving me anything useful. So, I've bought all the splat books I want, and I've got other things I want to do now. But so you skipped third edition and fourth edition entirely and went to fifth edition?
I play fifth edition, but I don't consume any of the material. I'm not going out and buying fifth edition books. I'll play it, but
So
my
are you
heart's
playing, you don't even own the player's handbook and you're just letting them tell you what to do?
I borrow their books.
I like it. Plus 10 XP to you, sir. Plus 10. That's my
So
thing. I
hey,
do posts on Twitter where I give people bonus XP for something. But that
so Jack, maybe tell
that
us.
is key. I love doing that.
I
As a
don't
matter
think
of
you
fact,
hear me.
there's many games recently. Since I've, like I mentioned, part of doing the channel and getting on X and stuff has been trying to learn how to social media. And as a result of that, I've been mixing it up with some other YouTubers and getting in some Discord games and stuff like that. So recently, I've played a bunch of games where I never even read the rule book. I don't know what anything on my character sheet means. I'm just playing, right? I'm telling you what to tell me what to roll. Tell me what I'm looking at on the sheet. So it's actually very freeing, and it stops you from thinking in the meta when you play that game. Like if you don't understand how the system of that game works, you're going to think, well, people are shooting at me. I'm diving under the table or getting undercover. I'm getting under the roof. That's my first action. It's not, well, let's see. I had this many points to spend this turn, and I'm gonna dodge. I'm gonna spend half an action to dodge and then half an action to return fire because I know my AC is good enough to not hit me. Like if I don't know any of those rule systems, I tend to think much more like hypothetically if I was a person in that situation for real. So
Right.
I then, well, how do I do that in this system? How do I dodge out of the way? How do I kick the gun out of his hand? What you name it, and let the DM set or GM, whoever's running your game, set that parameter for you. They'll tell you what you need to roll and whether or not you succeed and what else happens.
I played with a guy for a couple months that's kind of what he did. You would draw up your character sheet, but he would take your hit points away. Like you didn't have your hit points in front of you. You had your strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, all that in front of you. But he would take away your AC, he would take away your to hit. And he actually had a person that would sit next to him that was his assistant that would run the miniatures. He had a big table, long table that had the hex maps on it that was dry erase, so he could draw the maps out and do all that for the tabletop stuff. But he would actually roll the dice for you, and that was kind of interesting because it changes the game dynamics. Absolutely,
Interesting.
Right.
yeah.
right on.
So-
I can get that.
So
And
what's
I
your-
agree. You mentioned the Marvel superhero role playing game from back in the 80s. I run, and I've been running for almost 10 years now. Eesh. An on again, off again campaign of that. And I run that in a way I call system blind. The players in that don't know the rules, have never even seen the rule books, have never even seen their character sheets. I handle describing all their capabilities to them narratively, like, one of them super strong, but he doesn't know the exact limits of his strength, as opposed to if he knew he had an amazing strength, he knew he could reliably bench press 50 tons, right? He has no idea what his actual upper limits of strength are yet because he hasn't found them. He has tried to lift things and failed, right? But he's also lifted many things, successfully, like cars and stuff.
I've actually had that book. I've never had a chance to play it.
Oh yeah, it's a weirdly fun and simple system. It's one of the things that makes me speak highly of rules like games because the numbers and the crunch, there's enough of it that it matters, but there's not so much that you're stopping the game all the time to look up a rule or a nitpick or something or argue about something or other, and it's flexible and narrative. That there's a price to that, in the long term. There's something to be said for complex and complete games, but for my part, I like the flexibility of a rules like system. It allows me to spend less time crunching numbers and stuff in my head and more time like keeping the game moving, keeping everybody involved.
Right.
Yeah, that was Middle Earth's downfall. I don't know if you remember that game. It was came out right around the same time D&D was coming out, and it was sort of the competition to D&D. But at the time, D&D was still just a packet and a module, and maybe a couple books, Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide. That was about it. And but Middle Earth role playing system was so huge, you couldn't roll a die. It was like 6-sided die base, but you couldn't roll a die without looking through the books for 20 minutes to do the math on a simple action.
Yeah. Yeah, I did play the MERP system in the 80s and frankly did love it because it's the kind of crunch that's good. All those random tables for fumbles and criticals just made that game totally. That's 100% its appeal. If it didn't have those charts, I don't think anybody would really have liked it. um, yeah, but yeah, it's a very numbers heavy game. You're always flipping through the book. I don't know if you've ever seen or experienced Rollmaster, but that's the more advanced version of the MERP rules, where literally every weapon type has its own chart that you roll on for if you attack. So it's not just like, oh, the fighters have their own chart and they'll look at all these things like in the first edition D&D.
They got their own book.
For the scimitar and the battle axe and the axe and the Kopesh. The Kopesh is different from the scimitar, has its own chart. Long sword, broadsword, two totally different charts, different chances of different criticals. So I found that to be too crunchy for my taste, too much detail. And I don't fault people if that's where their taste range, but I like something more fast and flexible. Like out of the published editions of D&D, historically, my favorite one is the Beckme set, which are the box sets that Frank Mincer wrote in the 80s. So they're the ones that took you all the way up through the levels and into the immortal rules. And those are collected into the rules cyclopedia that you can get on reprint and stuff like that. So out of the official editions, that's always been my favorite. I like it because it's light and flexible in comparison, even to first edition. So if people wanted to pick up and play that game, I could have a game up and running within 15 minutes to a half an hour.
Yeah, that's not so bad. That's not so bad. I like games that you could set up fast. That was always good for me. So
my gaming experience varies. I like different kinds.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to sit there and have like a really big rule book where we just play, but then I like the fast ones too. It's it varies.
So you mentioned you were playing some games on Discord, and we're going beyond that now. It looks like in the future, these AI programs are starting to get pretty good. What are your thoughts on AI role playing?
I think it's got potential. I'm not inherently anti AI like most people either. I do tend to think human art is still superior, and human writing and stuff like that. But I'm not so certain that will hold forever. AI. I mean, if you compare the AI images produced now from just a few years ago, it's an amazing difference. And they're already moving on to producing all kinds of videos. I think I actually think that what WotC is trying to do behind the scenes and what they really want out of a what do you call it, the virtual tabletop that they recently tabled, what they really want is an app that they can charge people a subscription to, and what it will be is connected to an AI that will run a one giant living campaign with everybody who's paying the subscription. So like how the RPGA used to run the Living Greyhawk or the Living I think they did a Forgotten Realms version of it or something like that. But there was all kinds of living campaigns, and I know other people are doing similar things. But the one thing that could handle that number of players in one huge West Marches style, always on, one-to-one time, everything that everybody wants in a game, and an AI can do it, whereas no even team of humans could do it effectively. That's why everybody's table is its own little universe, whereas an AI along with the internet provides us the opportunity to make one huge campaign world where everybody who's paying the subscription can play, and it's still like playing D&D. You just have an AI dungeon master, but everybody else is a player.
Yeah, yeah. I actually kind of agree with you on that because I I liked like when some of the online stuff, Ultima Online was kind of cool. It was trying to go down that road where everybody could just come in and be in everything. Um, I
Mhm.
never really got into the EverQuest stuff because to me it wasn't it was too much grind and hack and slash. There wasn't enough interaction to me, is what it seemed like. Um, because
Yeah,
part of the computer game to me was the role playing, figuring out what you wanted to do with the character, even though it was basically choose your own adventure stuff.
yeah.
But at least
It's
you
funny.
had a road to go down.
As a little kid in the '80s and a young adult in the '90s, like I thought in my head that an MMO sounded awesome. I'm like, that sounds like exactly the kind of thing I would love. It's one huge computer game, and it's like D&D, but we're all playing together and stuff like that. That would be awesome. I thought I would love it. It turns out I actually hate it. I actually don't like MMOs because really nobody's up there role playing. It's not at all the same experience as what you get at a table to play a tabletop role playing game of any type. Even even with the role playing, like there's everywhere you go up there. The few places I've seen there are people who try to concentrate on the role playing, but they're even that just isn't the same as when you can play at a table with other people. Also, frankly, I just plain miss the dice.
Yeah, the dice. I always had my special set. You got lucky dice. There you go.
Travel pack
Nice.
for emergencies.
Wow, you got lucky dice.
I got some of my own
Yeah,
dice. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. This is my small set of dice. These are my everyday what I carry around with me dice. My real selection of dice. Well, it's off camera, and you can't see it because I'm a dragon, and that's my horde.
Well, maybe one day we'll get you to come off of the horde and we'll get to take a look at it. Um,
All right, maybe that's well, and dice collecting is certainly like a sub hobby of the hobby of gaming, right?
Yes, it is.
yes.
I have enough dice. No, no one has ever said that. No one has ever said, "No, I've got enough dice. I don't need it anymore." No one has ever said that. If you have said that, you're a freak of nature and should probably seek help.
Yeah, you know the guy really wants something to roll right when he digs into his bag and he's like, I need to be under that number. Okay, hold on, let me find them dice I know roll low. But yeah, it's cool. I used to have a big bag of dice. The old Crown Royal bags, everybody would carry those around for their portable dice bags when they were going to away games.
I made my dice
Yeah,
bag
every
out of
so
chainmail.
Rikus has one out of chainmail.
Yeah, I made it up. I do chainmail. I sit there and watch movies, and I make like a whole vest out of real chainmail, and I make it my dice bags.
So your dice bags, I mean, I like that. That's cool. You could sell those. Gamers would go hardcore gaga for that kind of stuff. A chainmail bag, gimme, I'll take two.
Yep.
You got to protect your paper money, I guess.
Supply and demand. Those things take a while to make, though.
Yeah, I imagine.
So
I've
tell us
seen how
about your.
it's a labor intensive thing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you've got. I don't know if we talked about it. I know we did a little bit before we went to tape, but you've got John with Jack, your show over there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, so recently I started a show called John with Jack on YouTube. It's just on my YouTube channel. The handle there is at Jack McCarthy Writer, Writer. And that was something I actually originally started that around, yeah, even a few years I think before the book got released. But I knew I might want to use a channel someday or something like that. Um, and I finally got around this June to starting my own show. And it took me a long time to really think of what I wanted to do. And my intention was to create a show where I engage with people who are just fans of role playing games like I am. It doesn't, I'm not necessarily focused on creators or people with a Kickstarter campaign that they need to plug or something like that. Although I have had plenty of guests with their own products that they are getting out there in the world. But I love just talking to anybody who loves these games, and I love having that conversation of how they got started and what was their first experience in the hobby like. Was their introduction Dungeons and Dragons? Do you still play? How long have you been doing it for? What are you up to now? And what are all the other games? And I tell you, it's an amazing community. There is so much. We're spoiled for choice when it comes to tabletop RPGs, particularly in the indie space, because there are so many great choices. And initially, when I started reaching out to people, it's been an overwhelming response from people. Everybody's been excited and gracious, working with my time and helping me learn because I knew nothing about streaming. It was something that I planned to start earlier in this year, and it took, just being busy with work and life and various things. I kept saying when things calm down, then I'll worry about starting up the show. And then before I knew it, it was, June. So I just said, heck with it, let's do it. I'm just going to do it and pull the trigger. And and except for 1 week of being sick, I've managed to do a show every week since.
Yeah, I don't catch them all, but I do get to catch like every other one.
Well, I
And you.
stream live on Mondays from 6 p.m. Eastern Time to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and I send it to X, YouTube, and Rumble, so you got three different platforms you can find it on. And the great thing about Rumble and YouTube in particular is that the shows persist, even though I'm streaming live, and it's a live talk show with somebody. It's preserved for posterity, and you can always go back and catch them, and there's not much of a visual element unless you like looking at my handsome face all the time. If you do, I don't, of course. but it's mostly auditory, so it works perfectly great as a podcast. I've even toggled the settings on YouTube, so the show should show up in YouTube Music for the people who use that particular app. That way, it's all audio for you.
Yeah, we should do that for our show too, because we 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 haven't started going there, but we're looking at other platforms to go out to too, and we'll talk more about our and when you have us on your show.
Yeah, yeah, and we're doing that again. That's in a month. I to be honest, completely forget the date. I just know I have to show up every Monday at 6. It's very I like schedule like that, and I usually remember by Sunday to check in with who I've scheduled as a guest. And that's the thing, that the response was so good. I'm actually booked up through almost to the end of the year. I actually got to book some spots in December, but I'm actually trying to catch up to the stuff. I got so excited. I reached out to everybody I wanted to talk to. Oh, this person be cool. This person be cool. And it's been so good that people have started to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I got a Kickstarter. Do you think we can squeeze me in around this time?" And some of them I haven't been able to do, which is why I'm trying to let me catch up to my schedule a little bit, so I'll have a little bit more room for the people who are trying to promote a Kickstarter. But like I said, I love talking to anybody in the hobby, even people who don't have some sort of product to show, and also content creators. Not at the moment, they have stuff out there in the world, but it's not during a Kickstarter. Uh, because if anybody who's been in the RPG space on YouTube knows that there's sort of a circuit that when one of us does a Kickstarter, they've got a product or something, they sort of do a tour on everybody's show, where they get to promote their Kickstarter campaign. And you can see that it wears on people too. It's like, yeah, I've watched this person for like the 14th time now, talking about theirs, and you can see that they're tired. They're really worn out, man. It's a grueling thing to do the self promotion tour circuit.
It's as bad as a book signing.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost exactly like that. I would say one consolation is book signings. You tend to have to go someplace, which is like, I don't want to do that. Let me stay home. If I can do it and stay home, then it's like it's on the list. It's much more likely to be done. If I got to go out in the world, it goes lower on the list.
Uh, well, so hey, we're pushing probably 45 on this on our time here. Then we don't usually go more than we try to stick between half an hour 45. So don't want to end this because we're having such a great conversation, man. And I miss sitting down and chatting with you, to be honest with you. But we try and keep the time limit in.
We need to do something where we can go over on our special like platform or something.
We're actually working on a website right now. So
Oh yeah, like do a members thing, and then
yeah,
like we're gonna switch over to the members section and continue the conversation.
we might do that. We might just keep going and put behind the scenes stuff there. We're not sure exactly yet, but
Yeah.
I am talking with some people to start putting that together. So hopefully
Awesome.
that'll be a pretty cool thing. Give us some space. But hey, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you being here, and it's great seeing you. Please say hello to Velma for me too, and everybody
Will
else that
do,
I know over that way.
man. Hope everything's good for you and yours, man, and best of luck. And I'll be in touch soon to finalize your coming on John with Jack.
All right, very good.
It was good meeting
All
you,
right.
man.
You too, Rikus, man. We'll be in touch.
All right, man.
All right, and just so that everybody remembers, we are giving away a couple things. There is one big thing in the radio community for that I do need to touch on before we totally wrap things up. The normal repeater that I talk on is which has been a really good repeater, and that our friend Tom N8CT has provided for the radio community here for the last couple of years. That's going down. He took it down today. The property that the repeater was sitting on and the tower was sitting on was sold, and so that we couldn't work a good negotiated lease with the new owner. So we had to take the tower he had to pull the repeater and take it out. So we're down to one repeater in the heart of Ashtabula that we're talking about. But we still have a good, strong amateur radio community, and just a quick thank to Tom and HCT for letting us putting it up there and making sure we could use it for the years that it was there. So that's all I had to say on that. And when we do get to 100 subscribers, we got a t-shirt and a coffee mug we're sending out to you folks. So like, share, subscribe our channel, and let us know that you like what we do.
Comment.
Yeah.
Love those comments.
Comment again, and then come back and say what you really mean. All right. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Appreciate it. And
Hobby on.
on.